In the room, pick a partner to look at. According to statistics, one of either you or your partner will develop a mental illness at some point in your life.
According to the CDC, more than 15% of Americans will be diagnosed with a mental illness sometime in their life. Despite this, there is still a lack of understanding and empathy when it comes to understanding mental illnesses. The reality is, someone you know or you may experience mental illness, and it's important to learn about it.
Among the most common mental illnesses are depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. And each of these have their own unique causes, symptoms, and treatments that one should be familiar with in order to increase general understanding and fight stigma in society. Depression is a mental illness that is so common it is sometimes referred to as the common cold of mental illnesses. About 350 million people worldwide suffer from it, and this statistic is taken from the Journal of Affective Disorders, published in 2017, written by Maggie E. Depression is a mental illness characterized by feelings of sadness and lack of interest in activities that were once enjoyed. There is no one cause of depression, but there are genetic, psychological, and environmental factors that increase the likeliness of someone having depression. For example, a person is more likely to have depression if family members have had it, if they are experiencing change and loss in their life, or if they are living in social isolation or in unhealthy relationships. Because of environmental factors affects in this illness, it affects different groups of people differently. For example, it occurs about twice as much as women as it does in men. And this is shown in this graph published by acrs.org in August 2017. This difference could be caused by the difference in social communities or pressures, and it could also be affected by which groups seek treatment and get diagnosed. So how do you diagnose depression? The main form of depression is called major depressive disorder, and this occurs when the symptoms of depression interfere with one's ability to work, eat, study, or sleep. In the article Fast Facts Depression by Haddad and Gunn, published in 2011, it goes into the specifics of diagnosing depression. For a person to have major depressive disorder, 5 out of 9 of these symptoms must be present. 1. Low mood. 2. Diminished interest and pleasure in activities once found pleasurable. 3. Reduced energy. 4. Disturbed sleep, which can mean either too much or too little than what's normal. 5. Agitation or slowed down speech or movement. 6. Disturbed appetite, which could mean increased or decreased. 7. Feelings of guilt or worthlessness. 8. Difficulty concentrating. And 9. Thoughts of death or suicide. 5 out of these must be present, and they must be pervasive and impair the person's usual function. And the person must experience them for most of the day, for most days, for at least 2 weeks. There are other forms of depression that share the same symptoms but are a little different. For example, dysthymic disorder, it has similar symptoms as major depression, but not disabling. Psychotic depression is a depression with some other form of psychosis. Postpartum depression is when the symptoms occur after a mother is giving birth. Seasonal affective disorder is when depression occurs during the winter months, and this is triggered by fewer hours of sunlight. And these forms of depression are listed in the article Mental Depression Forms and Causes of Treatment, published in 2009 by Raphael Moy. One thing about depression is it's very treatable. To treat depression, say if you're experiencing symptoms, you would first see a doctor, because there are several medical conditions that cause the symptoms of depression. One common one is problems with your thyroid. If it is not being caused by any medical problem, you can go to a psychiatrist and see if it can be treated medically. Depression is treated using antidepressants. So these normalize the neurotransmitters serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine, which are usually involved in regulating mood and causing more positive emotions. And then people with depression don't usually have enough of these in their system. So the most common antidepressants are usually serotonin reuptake inhibitors, like Prozac and Zoloft. So what these do is they actually, when your brain releases these neurotransmitters, serotonin, the drug blocks it from being reabsorbed, so your brain seems like it has more. These medications affect everyone differently, so it may take a while for someone to find one that works for them. There are also different side effects that affect people differently, so there is no one single cure-all for depression. Another treatment is psychotherapy, which can be used to treat mild depression and is often used alongside with antidepressants to treat major depressive. Either way, if depression can be recognized and diagnosed, it can be treated, and anyone experiencing the mental illness can return to functioning normally with the correct treatment.
Another mental illness that is closely related to depression is generalized anxiety disorder. Generalized anxiety is diagnosed in about 3% of the US population. Even more Americans suffer from some form of this disease and are not diagnosed. General anxiety shows the same symptoms as everyday anxiety, but is constant and is debilitating to those who suffer from it. I'll be discussing the symptoms, deeper causes, and the possible treatments for general anxiety. The signs of general anxiety vary from person to person, but usually include a few key indicators. The biggest symptom is recurring stress or anxiety that is more severe than everyday worry. While it is common to worry about everyday things, general anxiety causes chronic stress about simple tasks and events. Often, these feelings come without any particular stressor. Other symptoms complement these heightened feelings of anxiety and fear. FamilyDoctor.org lists these other symptoms as symptoms of general anxiety. Trouble falling, staying asleep, unexplained muscle tension or pain, increased irritability, trouble with concentration, tiring easily, and restlessness and edginess are all symptoms of general anxiety. While general anxiety shows many symptoms, its causes are not always clear. According to Psychology Today, the amygdala is a part of the brain central in the development of general anxiety. The amygdala stores certain emotional memories, processes incoming danger signals, and triggers responses from the brain. Under normal circumstances, a threat is detected, the amygdala emits a danger signal, and the brain enacts a response. When general anxiety is present, however, the amygdala is almost constantly emitting these danger signals. This is the neurological cause of general anxiety. Emotional memories stored in the amygdala are the root cause of phobias, which are closely linked to anxiety. Repressed memories and fears constantly emitting danger signals to the brain are the top explanation for the occurrence of general anxiety. Genetics can often carry susceptibility to general anxiety from family member to family member. It is not known exactly what causes this, and not known what causes some family members to develop anxiety and some to not. The passage of genes that code for the structure of the amygdala is likely how this susceptibility passes through genetics. Proper treatment of general anxiety is crucial to stop its effects and move past it. The main treatments for general anxiety currently include therapy, dietary changes, and chemical supplements. Cognitive behavioral therapy is the most common type of therapy currently used to treat general anxiety. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America published an informative article about understanding general anxiety and wrote that cognitive behavioral therapy teaches patients different ways of thinking, reacting, and behaving in situations that trigger their anxiety. A healthy diet may also be able to curb the symptoms of general anxiety. In a Mayo Clinic article written in May of last year, Dr. Craig Sawchuk lists the makeup of a diet that can be used to reduce anxiety. A breakfast with proteins is important to keep your blood sugar stable throughout the day. Balanced meals throughout the rest of the day continue this trend. Complex carbohydrates and water should be taken in greater amounts, and caffeine and alcohol should be limited or completely avoided. Prescription drugs are usually the last resort in the treatment process. Antipsychotic drugs are gaining popularity in the treatment of general anxiety. These drugs are not thoroughly researched and cause a bevy of dangerous side effects. The worst of these include muscle rigidity, substantial weight gain, increased cholesterol, and a heightened risk of diabetes. General anxiety disorder has far-reaching effects for those who suffer from it. Its causes are still not completely understood, but its many symptoms can help anyone identify if they or a loved one suffers from this. Treatment is available, and research is constantly being conducted to understand more and more about general anxiety disorder.
While depression and anxiety are both mental disorders that affect a large population of Americans, bipolar disorder follows closely behind as the third most commonly diagnosed mental illness. In fact, my own older brother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder during his senior year of high school. As I go into more detail about what bipolar disorder is, what causes it, and how to treat it, I will also share about some of the experiences that my brother faced while struggling with his illness. There are 4 different types of bipolar disorder: bipolar 1, 2, bipolar not otherwise specified, and cyclothymic disorder, or cyclothymia. But I won't be going into much detail about the different types. Bipolar disorder is also known as manic depressive illness. Manic being the high energy state and depressive being the low energy state. Some symptoms of bipolar disorder that show during the manic state will be if the person is unusually talkative, extremely active, has trouble sleeping, is irritable, or has risky behavior. In serious cases, the person would have hallucinations, psychosis, and delusions. An example of a hallucination would be when my brother, just hours before he was diagnosed, angrily texted me with over 200 text messages about how he saw me in a car talking to someone that he didn't like. He sent photos of random cars that I didn't recognize and mentioned people that I had never met. During the time that he was texting me, I was in my PE class at school, so there was no way that anything he said could have been true. An example of a delusion would be when Professor Donald Rugen at Cal Poly explained in one of his lectures about how one of his students believed that he was a superhero, causing him to act recklessly because of the belief that he was invincible. To clarify, many people have the misconception that the manic period is a happy state, but this is not necessarily true. For my brother, the manic period often meant that he was easily angered. On the other hand, the symptoms for the depressive period of bipolar disorder are very similar to the symptoms for depression.